If you're still using normal bank transfers for transferring large amounts across borders, like sending money to your children studying overseas, sending money back to your home country, or just handling large money transfers in general, my goodness, this video is made just for you. And for most people, all these transactions are mostly done via traditional banks or remittance companies, which are known for their exorbitant fees of 3-4% that you have paid even without you knowing, all because they take advantage of the lack of transparency on the foreign exchange rates. So yes, I've compared what most popular platforms have to offer and their rates, and trust me when I say this, your time invested here will save you a lot of future money. And here's how Wise, a traveling card like this one, can be your next go-to platform for sending money overseas, and whether or not they claim that Wise is actually 6 times cheaper is true. Let's find out. First off, yes, this video is sponsored by Wise, but as usual, all opinions are from my own. If you're new to Wise, they are an international money transfer and multi-currency account service that lets you manage money in over 160 countries and 40 currencies. They have been in market for around 14 years now, and the best part is they are fully licensed and regulated in more than 65 countries. And yes, in Malaysia, they are licensed by Bank Negara Malaysia as well. Honestly, if you ask me, this is a must-have account for almost everyone, whether you are a frequent traveler or just someone who does a lot of cross-border transfers. So feel free to use my link down below and get a fee-free transfer of up to 2,500 ringgit. Now, when we talk about remittance, it's just a fancy word for sending money from one person to another, usually across borders and involves different currencies. Think about parents in Malaysia supporting their kids studying overseas, or Malaysians working in Singapore sending money back every month, or foreign workers in Malaysia sending money home to their families in Indonesia or even the Philippines. Or even when you travel overseas and need to make a big payment to, let's say, your tour guide. Yes, sometimes it can be too troublesome to withdraw that huge amount of money from the ATM. And so, these are what remittances come in handy. But the sad reality is, most people still use banks or old school remittance services simply because there were not many alternatives either. And that's where the problem begins. Say you are sending 10,000 ringgit from Malaysia to Australia using a bank, you might see a 10 ringgit transfer fee at first, which feels okay. But what they don't tell you upfront is the additional agent/bank fees that may apply later. So, usually for most traditional bank telegraphic transfers, your payment goes through a network called SWIFT, and this network usually involves partner banks working together to send your money overseas. And a bank in the middle, which they usually call a correspondent bank, usually takes a cut as the intermediary fees. And then the receiving bank in Australia takes another cut as well, calling it the beneficiary bank fees or even the receiving fees. And these beneficiary fees will either be deducted before the payment reaches their account, or they will need to pay it additionally. But usually, you will not know how much the beneficiary fee is because, well, to be fair, it's charged by the foreign recipient bank. But on the other hand, Wise has its own payment network to handle all these transfers instead of relying on the traditional SWIFT network, which basically cuts out all the intermediary fees and ultimately makes the final cost significantly cheaper for all of us consumers. And it doesn't stop there. On top of all these fees, banks also give you a terrible exchange rate, and it's not even debatable. If you know, you know. You see, instead of getting the mid-market exchange rate that is very close to the one you see on Google, banks usually add a markup and give you a bank rate that can be quietly 2 to 3% worse off. And my friend, that small difference will end up costing you a lot down the road. Say 3% on 1,000 ringgit could be a small 30 ringgit, but 3% on 30,000 ringgit is 900 ringgit, paid just for a single cross-border transaction. So, when you think you are sending 10,000 ringgit to your children in Australia, they actually get way less than that in equivalent ringgit terms. And to add salt to your wound, after paying all of these fees, you still need to wait for a few business days for your money to even reach your children. And well, sometimes might be even longer if it's a weekend. Just Google people's experience with FTT, which is short for Foreign Telegraphic Transfer. and you will know exactly what I meant. And so that's where Wise comes in. Wise gives you the real exchange rate, aka the mid-market exchange rate, almost the same as the one you see on Google, and I can confidently tell you it's really as good as what they advertise. Instead of hiding fees in the exchange rates, they show you everything upfront. It's simple, transparent, and honestly kind of mind-blowing because you will never go back to old school banking for cross-currency payment once you start using it. And I know the notion of Maybank or public bank always felt safer, right? Well, as I've mentioned earlier, Wise in Malaysia is licensed by Bank Negara Malaysia. And when I said simple/ease of using just now, I really meant it. So now, let me show you how to get started with Wise and how to send large transfers now before I jump into comparisons with banks in the later part of this video. If you don't have a Wise account yet, signing up for one is free and fast. It should take you just a few minutes to do so. And if you use my link down below, you get a fee-free transfer of up to 2,500 ringgit. So now, once your account is ready, go to the home page and then click Send, and then add a recipient. Now, select the currency you want to send to, and in this case, I'll try with Australian dollar or AUD. And then you'll see the different options of how your recipient can receive that money. If say they don't have a Wise account, I would recommend choosing a bank, and then choose someone else and enter their bank details. In this case, their Australian bank detail. And now, input the amount that you would like to send or the exact amount that you would like your recipient to receive. It can be done both ways. And finally, choose how you want to pay for it. And there are a few methods that you can choose from. Transferring from the available money in your Wise account is obviously the cheapest option. But since the holding limit for a Malaysian Wise account is only 20,000 ringgit, that means anything more than that, you have to choose between online banking or bank transfer, which then you can transfer up to 600,000 ringgit. And since online banking is faster, I would also recommend you to choose that. And there you have it. You will immediately see the exchange rate, the fee, and how much the recipient will get from their end. And everything is totally transparent over here. And see? Very simple and easy, right? You can even track the status like a parcel. Very helpful to keep us up to date with where our money went or when your recipient has received it. But now, just bear in mind, depending on how much you are sending, let's say if it's a really big amount, Wise might need some documents for verification, and that's perfectly fine and normal. At least you know they are careful with each transaction, and that just shows their reliability and security. And I know, as I promised earlier, simple and reliable might not be as convincing if you don't compare the fees, rates, and charges with other banks, right? Ultimately, money still matters. So let's just do a quick case study. Say you're in Malaysia again and you're sending 10,000 ringgit to your child studying in Australia. First thing first, we look at the transfer fees. At the first glance, Wise looks like the loser over here with the highest fees of 64 ringgit and 34 cents or 0.64%. But hold on, let's look at their exchange rate. And the exchange rate over here is how much Australian dollar you can get with 1 ringgit. And with Wise, you can get roughly 36 Aussie cents for every ringgit. Whereas all other banks or platforms can only give you roughly 35 Aussie cents. And I know 1 or 2 cents difference might seem too small to care. But if you translate it into percentage wise, it's easily a 2 to 3% markup from Wise's rate. And that would mean quite a significant difference on the final amount that your recipient will receive. And yes, we are talking about 50 to 90 Australian dollars difference, and that's almost a week of groceries gone. And remember, this amount is only for a 10,000 ringgit transfer. If you're transferring a larger amount, the difference will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But on the other hand, the more you send with Wise, the cheaper it gets every time. And yes, the average fee just gets cheaper and cheaper. If you have tried it before, comment down below what's the cheapest fee that you have got yourself. So, compared to banks, Wise is definitely cheaper and a no-brainer choice. And compared to remittance companies like Remit, still cheaper. At the speed, in most cases, Wise gets the money there faster than anyone else. And like I've always said, whether Wise sponsors me or not, it's really not hard for me to recommend this brand to you because it's just that good. Once again, thank you Wise for sponsoring this video. It's always great to be working with a brand that I've already been using myself for many years. So if you're ready to save some money, use my link down below to sign up and get a fee-free transfer of up to 2,500 ringgit. Thanks for watching.